Okay, so this is a two-part tutorial on getting started and building walls. This first part is purely kind of two-dimensional. We're going to draw out the floor plans in Rhino and then set ourselves up so that in the next tutorial, we're ready to extrude and actually build the 3D model. Okay. At some point, I'm actually going to model the entire, I'm actually going to draw the entire floor plan, both floor plans. It is a two-story project. Um, and so at some point, it's going to start to get repetitive. So just know that it's perfectly fine to, watch this tutorial, follow along until you feel comfortable and confident with your own kind of skills. And at that point, you can move on to the following tutorial. You might want to just fast forward to the very end just to make sure that what I have is the same thing that you have before jumping on to the next tutorial. But once you feel confident, comfortable with these commands, then you can just take off with it. Okay. So the first part is going to be to first download the floor plan. I have it open right now in another page. It's actually ideal to print it out, especially if you're just getting started with Rhino, getting started with floor plans. It might be better for you to print it out so that you can see it better. You can make the little notes if you feel like you need to. Um, if you have, the other thing is if you happen to have two monitors, this is why two monitors is good because you can model it in Rhino and then move the PDF onto a second monitor. And this way you could reference both the floor plan and the Rhino file simultaneously. Or what you can also do, and this is not as great, but it'll also do the job, is take a picture on your phone and then you could just kind of zoom in and zoom out. Ideally, what you need is you need to be able to see the dimensions so that you know what you're modeling and when you know how long to draw a line or how much to offset, things like that. Um, so that's why you need some type of copy or reference. You could always toggle back and forth to your PDF that you have up here, um, that I have. Sorry, I'm not really sharing it. But that becomes really annoying because you're kind of having to draw a line, stop, then go into the onto the page, find yourself again. It's just not convenient. Okay, so you're going to download the PDF. As mentioned down below, we have some general notes. And for this tutorial, what we really care about is our exterior walls and interior walls because we're modeling out walls. So exterior walls are going to be 6 inches, interior walls are going to be 4 inches. So let's just make a mental note of that. Okay. And really quickly, here's the floor plan. We're going to start off by just drawing out the box. Okay. And then we're going to start off by, and then we're going to move into our interior walls. And then afterwards, we're going to create the cutouts of our windows. And then that's it. Okay. So right now, what I really want to do is create the line work for all of the walls that are being, that are going from the floor all the way up to the ceiling. Okay. So like unobstructed walls, which is these. Afterwards, we'll go in and we'll actually model the wall that goes underneath the window and the wall that goes above the window, the sill, what we call the sill and the header. Um, and that will be in the second tutorial. Okay. And then we also have the second floor as well. We're going to do that too. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into Rhino. So I just opened up the file. First thing we're going to do is set our units. I'm going to type in units, set this to feet. We're going to go to feet and inches, set that to 1/8. We'll hit OK. You're also going to want to save your file. Okay, so you're going to go to File and then Save As, and then save your file where you need to save it or wherever you know you're going to locate it afterwards. Okay, you should at this point have a folder saved somewhere on a desktop or saved on your documents that is, Arc 11 Rhino project or project 1. Okay, and that's where you're going to want to save your file. Then we're going to move over to our layers, and I'm going to create three layers, one for our lines. So let's go ahead and left click, and we're going to call this lines. I'm going to change the color. Okay. Let's go with red. We're going to create another that is for our three-dimensional models. So modeling. So we're going to go walls, first floor, space there. We'll do another one that's walls, second floor. Okay. I could expand this just so we could see that a little bit better. Now, we're not going to touch these in this tutorial. We'll do this in the next tutorial, but since we're talking about layers, let's might as well set them up now. And we could go ahead and change the color to, I don't know, let's go with the lavender. Nope, want the color and sea green. I associate a color to the line so that when we're modeling, I can easily see what is what. If everything is that same kind of monotone gray, then it's going to be very difficult to see what's what. However, some people want to see that and they prefer modeling in that way. So that's entirely up to you and your preference. Okay. But we are going to be modeling everything in the default layer, as I mentioned before, and then moving it to the corresponding layer afterwards. All right. Since we are drawing the floor plan strictly just two-dimensional, we're not extruding any lines in this tutorial, so we just need to draw out the floor plan. The best thing to do is to draw it out in the top view. This is going to ensure that the line work goes along the ground plane, okay? Going along what we call the C plane. I'm not sure why it's called C plane, but that's what it's called. C as in the letter C, not the ocean C. This is the C plane. This grid is the C plane. So we want to make sure that we're drawing on the C plane. So I'm going to double click on the top view. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and get started with the box. I'm going to start with a polyline. So I'm going to left click, and then I'll go ahead and left click anywhere in the positive quadrant. This is the positive quadrant, right? So in the top right corner, all lines and numbers are positive. We can go ahead and model out here. It's really not that important. In the past, it was difficult to model, or we'd run into certain issues because positives and negatives start going to the wrong directions. But that, that no longer applies, but still the practice is that you model it, you start in the positive quadrant. Okay. So I'm going to start, if you're looking at the floor plan, I'm going to start on the bottom left corner. And that wall, the overall wall there is 33 feet. So I'm going to click, left click, okay? Now I notice that I want to go straight up, so I need to make sure that ortho is turned on. Okay. I don't need planar. I'm going to actually turn planar off. I want snaps. Gumball, that's fine. Smart track, let's leave it on for right now. Okay, so I'm going to go up 33 apostrophe enter. Sorry, left click. And then over here, this dimension, if we're looking at the floor plan, is 23 feet. So I'm going to type in 23 apostrophe. Technically, we don't have to enter the apostrophe. Sorry, I wrote that wrong. 23 apostrophe. Okay. And then left click. I still do it just because it's habit. And then we're going to go down 33, left click, and then I'm going to just close this off. Okay. Now, so we have the outline of the building. Now we're going to offset these walls. So I'm going to use the offset, and that's going to give me the thickness of our exterior walls. Okay. And if you remember, those general notes said that our exterior walls are 6 inches. So I'm going to type in offset. Actually, I'm just going to do off, and then the rest pops up. I'll hit enter. And right here where it says distance, I'll go ahead and click there. Okay. Now, for some reason, this distance is always, it always gives it to us in a decimal form. But you'll notice that once I click here, it tells me what the actual offset distance is set to. So right now it's already set to 6 inches. So I actually just want to leave it. If we want, we could actually type 6 inches again, or we could just hit enter. And then I'm going to click on the line. Okay. Remember, it's not a click and drag. Click on the line. And notice that wherever my cursor is, that's where the lines are going to offset. Okay. The yellow line is the lines that we drew. That's our selected lines. The black lines is the lines that are being offset. Watch what happens when I move my cursor to the other side. You'll see that the lines are offsetted to the outside. Now, this is important to kind of take a moment and pause to think, okay, well, does it matter which side I offset? Well, if we offset to the outside, that means that our exterior dimension, right, this far corner to this corner, is now going to get 6 inches wider on both sides. That means that my overall dimension is no longer going to be 23 feet, but it will be 24 feet, right? 6 inches on this side, 6 inches on the other side. So if we offset to the outside, then our exterior, our outside dimensions are now compromised. They've now changed. If we offset to the inside, then those exterior dimensions stay the same, which is what we want. So we're going to offset to the inside. Okay. Ah, and there you have it. You have the building, you have the exterior building outline. See, you're practically done. Halfway done. Not really. Okay, so we have the exterior shell. Now I want to model the walls of the powder room. Okay. So this the powder room is on the top left corner. Okay. Now at this point, we can do this in a couple different ways. Okay. And I'm going to tell you the two ways, and I'll show you which one, and I'll model it the faster way of the two. One way is we can use the line tool or the polyline, and I could just draw a line that goes straight up, hit enter, do the same thing, draw another line, hit enter, do the same thing. And then I could use the move tool, right? And I'll move this, whatever that distance is, which is 5 feet. Okay, then I'll go ahead and click. And then I'll go ahead and you select this and I'll use the move tool again, which is, and go down, which is 5 feet 4. Okay, 5 feet 4. And click. And then from here, we could go ahead and offset the walls and do that, right? The other way, and I prefer this method, is to actually select these lines and explode them. Okay, so now these lines are individual lines. Now I know in previous tutorials I said you almost never want to explode, but that's actually referring to three-dimensional objects. Here, this is 2D lines, right? And what I actually said was you don't want to explode unless it's intentional. And in this case, I want to explode because previously this was one rectangular box and it was one set of lines. By exploding it, now each line is its own individual line. And I can now select this line, use the offset tool, and offset this 5 feet. And then do the same thing. Oops. Select this line, offset this 5 feet 4. Okay. So what we essentially did was eliminate the need of having to draw the lines first and then just offset those. Instead, we just exploded these lines and offsetted them. We saved ourselves a few seconds um, of work, but all that adds up. Okay. So if we take a close look at if we take a close look at the drawings, we can see that the 5 feet 4 is from the outside. So from here to there, right? Actually, this should be, aha, I did something kind of not cool, not right. Well, it's a learning lesson. Okay, let's take a look at the dimensions really quickly. If you zoom into, and you know what, I'll go ahead and share so we're all looking at the same thing. This is the area that I was modeling right now. Okay. I just offset 5 feet and then came in 5 feet forward this way without really paying attention to what it was that I was offsetting to. So this is where it can get confusing. And it's these very little things you have to really pay attention to, right? Um, or else dimensions don't add up. So keep this in mind. If you ever fall into a position, or if you find yourself in a position where the dimensions are just not adding up, even though you enter the correct dimensions, this is probably what happened. I went 5 feet, but that's 5 feet from inside to inside. And then I went 5 feet forward, and that dimension is from inside of the wall to the outside of this wall, right? So this dimension is from interior to interior. This dimension is from interior to exterior. And that's where it can be confusing. And so that means that when I offset my lines right now, right, we had talked about whether do we offset inside or outside. When I offset this line that I have, I actually have to offset this line outward because right now that line is at the 5 foot. So I have to offset this 4 inches this way. However, this line here needs to be offset to the inside, right? Because this line that I already have is the 5 foot four. So I want to go 4 inches in. This line that I have right now is 5 feet, and I need this to go outside. Okay. So that's a very small detail that we just have to be aware of. Now, had I seen this, thought about this beforehand, I could have made my life a little bit easier and just offset 5 feet, 4 inches so that it's outside and outside. But now that I caught this, we can make that change accordingly, or we could, just set the offset correctly. So let's go back. So this is the 5 foot line. I'm going to offset this line, click on this, change the distance to 4 inches, enter, and I'm going to offset out this way. Then this one here, I'll offset, oops, offset, and this one will be offset inward to this side here. Okay. Now, if we're not sure, we could always use the distance tool. I type in distance, hit enter, and I'll measure from the inside to the outside should be 5 feet four, and the same thing over here, inside to outside should be 5 feet four. So we know we did it correctly. Okay. So here we have the box. We have our model. I'm sorry, we have our powder room. Okay. And what we're going to do now is trim this, 1 minute. That looks a little, no, I guess that's right. It was looking a little small, but it's not. Okay, so now what we're going to do is trim the excess lines that we don't need. Okay. Now, technically, the trim tool, T-R-I-M, enter, works like this. It's asked me to select the cutting object. So which line do I want to, which line is going to be my cutting object? So let's say I want to get rid of this portion of the line. My cutting object would be this line right there. So I'll go ahead and click on that line and I'll hit enter. Then it's select the object to trim. Select pressing shift to extend. So if we want to extend it, we can hold down the shift key, but we want to trim. So I'll click this line and there you have it. It gets deleted. Okay, so technically that's how you're supposed to use the trim command. However, there's a much more efficient, faster way of using the trim command, and it's just kind of bending the rules a little. So I'll type in trim and says select the cutting objects. And what I'm going to do is do a cross window around the area that I'm working in. And I'm going to say, hey, it's all cutting objects. Every line is cutting every other line that it's intersecting, right? Every line can be used as a cutting line. And I'll hit enter. And now it's asking me, okay, well, select the object to trim. And now this is important because I want to click on the portion that gets deleted. Okay. So if I click over here, it's going to delete this line. I'm going to click over here and that gets deleted. And since everything is still selected and I'm still in the trim command, I'll go ahead and keep clicking. I want to get rid of that. I want to click get rid of that. I actually don't want any lines intersecting on the inside of my wall. Right, so I have to clean that up. And if we clean that up, Well, then we have to clean this line up as well, right? Because we don't want any intersecting lines. And now once I'm done, I'll hit the escape key or the enter key. And there we have a clean little powder room. Okay. Now, technically, this is it. This is our first floor walls without the openings. Okay. So the next step is going to be to actually model out the openings. So what I'm going to do is use these interior wall lines, and I'm going to start to offset wherever the openings exist. Okay. So I'm going to start at the bottom left corner, and I'm going to offset. So create that door. I'm going to offset. I'll select, actually, the distance is going to be 10 inches. So 10, quotation, enter. And then I'll click on this line, and I want to go 10 inches there. Then it's 3 feet. So I'll hit enter on the keyboard. Okay, remember that by hitting enter, it actually remembers, Rhino will remember the previous command that you used. So I actually don't have to type in offset every single time. If I'm repeating that same command, I'll hit the enter key. I'll change the distance this time to 3 feet, enter. And now I'll click this line and I'll go up. And I'm going to go ahead and keep moving forward. And now the next line is 7 feet 1.5 inches from this line there. So I'll hit enter again, change the distance, and I'm going to type in 7 feet, 1 space. Oops. Let's do this again. Sorry. Distance should be 7 apostrophe 1 hyphen 1/2 inches. Enter. And then we'll go up. And then that opening there is 3 feet. So I'll hit enter again, change the distance to 3, enter. And there we go. We'll hit enter again to offset. And now this distance is 8 feet 2. So 8 apostrophe 2, enter. And then that's it. If we want to check our work, what we will do, oh, wait. That's not it. 8 feet, 8 feet 2, then now we need another 3 feet, right? So I'll hit enter, change the distance, and then 3 feet, enter. Click and offset there. Now to finalize it, make sure we did everything correctly. We're going to use the distance tool. And now this last one should be 7 feet, 10 and 1/2, which is what I show on my drawing. Okay. So now these areas here are going to be the openings. This is where the windows are going to be. So I need to cut the wall portion out. So I'm going to use the trim command again, trim, enter. I'll do a cross window. This is a drag and drop, sorry, drag, click, drag, and then let go. Okay. These are all the cutting objects. So I'll hit enter on the keyboard, and then I'll go ahead and start clicking what I don't need. Okay. Now I could also do a cross window and do multiple selections that way as well. There we go. And then when I'm done, hit the enter key. And there we have our openings, right? This is the portion of the wall that is going to be joined, or that goes from the ceiling all the way up to the floor, okay, without any obstructions. Let's go ahead and go back to the opposite side over here. We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to move a little bit faster this time. Okay. So now we're going to type in offset, change the distance to 6 feet 4, enter, and then click on this line, go up. And this opening is 3 feet. So I'll hit enter, change the distance to 3, enter, up. Now I just entered 3, by the way, not 3 apostrophe, because if you remember, our units are set to default to feet. right? When we type in units and we change that to feet, that means any number, if we don't enter a unit of measurement, um, it will default to feet. So that's why I just typed in 3 because the default is feet. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and offset again. This time this is going to be 9 apostrophe 9 minus sign or hyphen 1/2. And then I'll go ahead and click. And then this is a 6-foot window. So I'll hit enter again, change the distance to 6, enter, and we'll move up. And then this is 3 feet 10.5. So I'll enter again, change the distance to 3 apostrophe 10 minus hyphen 1/2, enter. Okay. And then the last part is 3 feet 6. Now, if you look, if you zoom in there, that window is running straight into our exterior wall. Okay. Now I could offset this, but what that's going to do, let's go ahead and offset that. We're going to change this distance to 3 feet 6. Okay. So what that's going to do, go ahead and click to finish it, is it's going to create 2 lines on top of one another. Right. And now, as I mentioned before, you never want multiple lines on top of one another because then it gets tricky. Then you don't know what is actually what, right? We always want objects to be singular. We don't want multiple overlapping objects or lines. So I'm going to select this one and delete the line I just created. What we can do is take this line and then just extend it over, okay? So what I'll do is I'll type in the command extend, and it's asking to select the boundary line. So what's the boundary of what we're going to extend? Is this line. I'll hit enter or spacebar and then select the curve to extend, which is going to be this line. And then we'll hit enter to finish. So now this is one singular line and we just extended it out to this side. Okay. Now go ahead and use the trim command again, select the whole window, hit enter, and then start trimming the parts, the openings, right? Which is this area there, and then this area here. And when I'm done, I'll hit enter. Okay. So now we have the openings on both the east and west walls. I'm going to add the opening now on the south wall down here. Okay. And this one is simply going to be an offset. So let's go ahead and offset. This distance is going to be 5 feet 10. And I'm going to select this curve over there. Okay. And then I'll offset again, hit enter, change the distance to 3, enter to right there. Okay. And I'll use the trim command, hit enter, do a crosswind around everything, spacebar, click, click, and click, and then spacebar to finish. Okay. Now we're almost done with our openings. This is, again, this is where we're going. We're going to go back later and fill this in with the actual windows. Okay. But right now we just want to cut all of our openings. The last opening I need to cut is going to be the door over here in the powder room. So I'm going to offset this curve here, change the distance to 8 inches, again, and click right there. Hit enter to pull up the offset command again. Notice that you don't have to click the line first and then go to distance. You could actually insert the distance. I've been doing that actually. 2 feet 8, enter, and then click on the line afterwards and select the offset. Then I'll use the trim command and then end spacebar, click, click, spacebar to finish. And there we have our first floor. Okay, with all of the wall, with all of the openings that we're going to create. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing now. And this time I'm going to do it for the second floor. Okay. Now I don't, at this point, it doesn't really matter where I start the second floor. What we're going to do is actually model the first floor and the second floor separately. And then at some point, we're going to bring those two geometries and line them up where they belong on top of one another. Okay. But we'll make that alignment when we actually move those two to join them. So right now, they're just going to be done separately. So I can really model the second floor wherever I want. Again, I prefer modeling in the top positive quadrant. Let's take a quick look at the second floor. Got my Zoom tools. All right. So here is the second floor. It's a box that's 21 feet by 41 feet, and then a bunch of interior walls. There is an outdoor balcony. So the exterior wall actually goes down 12 feet 6, and then it cuts in 8 feet, goes down 8 feet 6, and then comes across a distance that is not listed here. Okay. But I figured if I start at this corner and I go up 21 feet, 41, then 12.6, then 8 feet, then 8.6, I could pretty much just connect the line from here all the way to there. It'd be a lot more annoying if I started it this way and had to draw a line that's 7 feet 2, 5 feet, 7.4, and so on. Right. So let's go ahead and get started on the second floor. We'll hit share. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is again start with the lines, polyline. Since I'm starting on that bottom right corner of the building and I'm going to go up and then to the left, I want to make sure that I give myself enough space. Okay. So I'm going to go kind of farther outside here. Doesn't matter if the grid doesn't exist over here. I'm going to click and I'm going to go up 21 feet. 21, and then left click and then move my cursor to the left here, and that's going to be 41 feet. Enter, click. Okay. And then this is going to be 12 feet. 6, enter, click. I'm going to move the cursor in to the inside, and that's going to be 8 feet. Type in 8, and then click. And I'm going to come down 8 feet, 6, enter, click, and come across to this side now. And that joins perfectly. Now again, our exterior walls are 6 inches, so I will select this line, type in offset, change the distance to 6 inches, and I'm going to offset inward. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing as I did with the first floor where I select the two. Oops, don't move it. Click and drag. Let me undo. That's Control Z on the keyboard. I'm going to select the two lines and explode them. Okay. And now they're all individually exploded. All right. Let's start somewhere. It's a lot easier. The general rule of thumb when laying out interiors is to start off with modeling the bigger spaces and then start to add in all of the smaller spaces. Okay. Um, and you typically kind of work your way from one side of the building to the other one. So if that's the case, then I can either start with bed 2 or bed 1. But see, bed 2 has that bath 2 at the bottom, and so that becomes a little bit more complicated. I just want to start off with a rectangle and then move my way. So let's start off with bed 1 over here. So, and I'm going to start from this line and move my way this way. So that distance of bed 1 is 12 feet. So I'll hit offset, select the line, change the distance, 12 feet. Enter and click. Now we said that all interior walls are 4 inches. So I will offset, distance, 4 inches, enter. Click and move to the left. Now this one here is the bath 1 is 6 feet. So offset, distance, 6, enter, click, and then offset again. Sorry, I should have just hit the space bar. Click, change the distance to 4 inches. You're gonna get really good at offsetting. Um, Hit the space bar, change the distance to 7 feet. 7, enter, go. Hit the space bar again. These repetitive moves, by the way, is when you really want to try to be really efficient and move as fast as you can, right? Talked about in the past, time is money. Modeling it takes a lot of time. And so you want to try to force yourself, especially once you start to get into the rhythm of things, start to force yourself to move a little bit faster. How fast can you actually do it, right? Obviously, this is also when mistakes happen. But that's okay because you have to also learn how to go back and figure out where you made those mistakes. We always have to do that. So that's also part of the process too. Um, okay, so where were we? I'm going to offset this line. Oh, distance 4 inches. Okay. And there we have our bath 2. Now I'm going to offset this line up. Okay. And I could see in bed 1 that the distance to the inside is 8 feet 2 inches. But if I follow that wall all along here, right, 8 feet 2, I'll see that it actually lines up to this side of the wall. So I could do this one of two ways. I can offset 8 feet 2 and then, offset again another 4 inches. But again, then we run into that problem where the lines begin to overlap. What I'm actually going to do is just take this line here, extend it to this wall. So I'll click on this line, hit enter, and then click here. Okay. And then I'll hit spacebar to finish. So now I have one line. I'll go ahead and offset this line 4 inches, which actually it's already 4 inches. Click and bring that down. Okay. At this point, I want to go ahead and clean this up a little bit. I'm not going to clean it up entirely. So let's hit the trim, use the trim command, hit the space bar and do a cross window around the area that I want to trim. Okay. Those are all my cutting objects. I'll hit the space bar again. And I want to trim this part here because that wall doesn't continue on. Let me clean up the inside here. This wall here actually does continue on, so let's leave that. And the same with this wall here, that does continue on, so let's leave that. And I'm just going to delete that area there. Okay, and then hit the space bar. Cleaning up your lines makes it a lot easier to understand. At some point, it becomes a bit overwhelming, right? All right, so let's go ahead and let's get back to bed 1 and let's figure out where is this wall here. So this wall is 16 feet 2 inches. Took me a while to figure out where that dimension was. So by bed 1, 16 2 from the inside line. Okay, so make sure that you're offsetting from the correct line. So we're going to offset this line, and we're going to click on distance, and we're going to go 16 feet 2, enter, and click. Okay. And then we're going to offset that 4 inches. I don't know why I started typing offset. We didn't have to do that. Select line, type in, oh, sorry, change the distance to 4 inches. There we have that. Okay. And then I'll go ahead and trim this area. Trim with the space bar, select these windows. So select these objects, hit the space bar to start trimming. I'll cut here, 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 and here. And then enter when I'm done. And then over here, I mean, essentially those are all of our walls, right? But I want to go ahead and cut up the doors. And I'm going to cut up the doors on the interiors first before I start cutting the openings on the exteriors, just because we're currently working on the interiors. So starting over here, actually, let's go back. Let's go to Canvas. Let's go to the general notes. Okay. Oh, I don't put it in there. Okay. Um, so all doors should have a 4-inch spacing to the walls. So let's go back. Let me show you what I mean. If you look at the dimensions, there is, so if we're looking at the top left corner, okay, um, of bed one, where there's a door, there's actually no dimensions to that door, right? So what I'm saying is we're going to put 4 inches from the interior wall, and that's where the door is going to start. And that interior door, if we actually go back and look at the general notes, all interior doors are 32 inches, so 2 feet 8 inches. Okay, so let's go back over here. So with that, we can go ahead and offset. The distance is already set to 4. I'll hit the space bar and I'll click this line, and that's 4 inches. Then I will offset again, and I'm going to offset this 2 feet 8 inches, enter, and then click this line, go down. And then I will extend, right, these two lines to this line there. Hit the space bar and now select those two. And space bar to finish. And then I'll use the trim command, sorry. Hit the space bar, do a cross window around everything, hit the space bar again, click, click, and then do a cross window, and then space bar to finish. Okay. So luckily, we have a couple more of those to do, so we can get repetitive here. Again, we're going to go down here. The spacing is 4 inches, so I'm going to set, change the distance to 4 inches, click and go up, and then change the do offset again, change the distance to 2 feet 8, and then go up. Use the trim command, do a cross window around the area we want to trim, hit spacebar, click, 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 and click, and there's our opening. But while I'm here, let's go ahead and clean up that wall too. Okay. And now we have the laundry. We actually have to clean this area up as well. So we'll change that. We'll clean that up in this next trim. We'll offset again, change the distance to 4 inches. Click, move that out, hit the space bar, change the distance to '8, enter, click over there, hit this extend command, click that line, hit the space bar, click, click, hit the space bar to finish. Now I will do the trim. And this time, since I want to get this portion, I'll do a cross window all the way out here. Hit the space bar, click, click, cross window, then come over here, click, click, and click, and then space bar to finish. Okay, over here, we have to clean this up, but let's go ahead and do this opening here. We'll do offset, distance, 4, enter, click, nope, not 4 feet, offset, distance, 4 inches, right there. Hit the space bar, change this to 2 feet 8, enter, click, and then trim. Hit the space bar, click, 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 and let's clean this up too. Oop, I should have done that area. I forgot to do that. We'll do that with this one over here. So we'll do offset, distance, 4 inches. We'll come in there and we'll offset again. Oh, I just hit O, so now ortho is off. Let's turn that off. Offset, distance, 2 feet 8. Click there. And then trim. Select that down there. Hit the space bar. Do cross window there, there. Let's clean that portion up. And then clean those two. And then hit the space bar. Notice that I'm moving a lot faster. Hopefully a lot faster. A bit faster. Okay. All right. The next part is actually going to be to draw in those closet spaces. So working in bed 2, I'm going to offset this line here 2 feet, 2 feet 4, so offset. And at this point, this should all be repetitive now. So I'm going to start moving a bit faster. While I have this, while I'm doing this, I'm also taking a look at the closet over here, and it looks to be almost the same. So since I'm in the offset tool, right? Um, Actually, since I have that 2 feet 4 distance, I'm actually just gonna hit the space bar and offset this 2 feet 4 again. So I don't have to complete that command in the future. And then from here, we'll go ahead and offset this 7 feet 6. I keep hitting O. I keep hitting O because in AutoCAD, offset, the shortcut key to offset is the letter O, which is different than Rhino. You start learning so many softwares, you start mixing some of the commands up. So distance, we're gonna go 7 feet 6. So 7 feet 6, enter, click there. And then over here, this distance is 7 feet 4. So offset, change this to 7 feet 4, enter, go over here. All right. Now we're going to offset again, hit the enter key, change the distance to 4 inches because all interior walls are 4 inches. I'm going to offset that, offset spacebar, offset that, hit the spacebar again, offset that, spacebar again, offset in. Okay. And then I'll go ahead and trim. Actually, before we trim, we're going to leave just 4 inches on either side. Okay. So let's hit offset again. I keep doing that same mistake. All right, it's still set to 4 inches, so I'll click, go there, hit the spacebar, click, go there, hit the spacebar, click. I'm hitting the spacebar to bring up offset, and since it remembers our distance, that's how we don't have to change that. Everything is set to 4 inches. Okay, now it begins to get a little bit tricky here, but our wall does exist on the inside there. Let's hit the trim command, select, do a cross window on everything we want to clean up, hit enter or hit the space bar, and I want to trim this, I want to trim this, I want to trim this, right? And then this line and this line, and then this line and this line and that line and this line. Okay, and once I'm done, hit the space bar. We're gonna do the same thing over here. Hit the space bar to start, do a cross window, hit the space bar again, click there, delete all of these lines that I know I'm not gonna need, right? And then zero in and delete all of these lines. Click, click, and click. This line, oops, let's delete that. All of these lines. And this one too. And this one too. Okay, and then I'll hit the space bar to finish. Okay. And now we have all of our interior walls and all of our all of our interior walls with the door openings along with the closet space. Okay. Let's see. All right, so now let's go ahead and tackle the exterior openings. And I'm going to start on this bottom right corner. Okay. And again, I'm going to move a lot faster now because a lot of these commands are repetitive. So we're going to type in, or at least I'm going to try to move fast. I'm going to type in offset. This offset command is killing me. 1 foot 11, enter, click right there, hit the space bar, and then change the distance to 2 feet, enter, click. Right? And then there's a 7-foot gap, so space bar, change the distance to 7, enter, click right there, space bar, distance 2, space bar, click. Okay. And that's it on this side. I'm actually going to clean it up at this point. I could go on, but then it gets really messy on the inside. So trim, spacebar, hit the spacebar again, and I'm just going to do a cross window around all of these lines. And then hit the spacebar. Right. Now on the top here, we're going to offset this top line there. Right. We're going to offset distance is set to 18 feet, 11 minus 1/2. Sorry, it's not minus, it's hyphen. Space bar, and then click, and there we go. We have our first line. Space bar and change the distance to 6, enter, for 6 feet. Okay. And then space bar again to bring up offset distance. Change this to 4 apostrophe 2 hyphen 1/2 space bar. And then click, and there we go. And then space bar again, change the distance to 2 feet. So 2 space bar, click there. And then space bar again, click this line, change the distance here to 7. Space bar, click, space bar again, click, change this distance to 2 feet. There we go. So now I'll use the trim command, space bar, do a cross window on this entire wall, space bar again, and I'll delete these, do a cross window there, cross window, cross window, cross window, space bar. Okay. Now there's no openings on this side here. Now over here, what I'm actually going to do is extend this line down because that's where this wall ends. And then I'll offset inward. Okay. I'll offset onto the inside 4 inches because that's where the door is. But then from here, I'm going to go ahead and just leave this whole area open because it's essentially going to be one big window with a door attached to it. So we're going to use the extend command, click, click, space bar, and then click that line so that it extends all the way. And then this line here, we're going to offset this line 4 inches to the inside, 4 inches there. And we're going to extend this line in. So extend, space bar, click on what we want to extend to, space bar, and there we have that, space bar. Okay, so now let's do a cross window. We're gonna trim this, do a cross window here, space bar, and then delete that portion and delete this line. And that's what I'm gonna leave it as right now. All right, we're almost there. Just have to add our windows here and actually clean up these portions of the lines too. All right, so now let's go from this side. We're going to offset. I'm going to change the distance to 7 feet 2 inches. Sure. Click and move that line out there. And we have an opening of 5 feet, so space bar. Click on this line, change the distance to 5, space bar, and then click. And then from here, it's 7 feet 4 inches, so space bar again, distance, 7 apostrophe 4, space bar, click this line and click. Then this is a 2'8" window, so space bar, distance, 2 feet 8, space bar, click, click, and then that's it. So let's go ahead and, is that it? Yeah. Let's go ahead and use the trim command, trim. I need to clean this portion, right, this intersecting lines. So I'm going to do a cross window around all of this, hit the space bar, and then delete these, delete this, delete this, this, and this area, and that right there, and then space bar. And there we have it. This is where we're going to leave off. We have all of the lines that we're going to extrude upward to create our walls drawn up as a 2D kind of line drawing. Okay. Once you have this, you can go ahead and move on to the next tutorial where we're actually going to do all of the extrusions. All right. Good luck, everyone.